Hey guys, welcome to another Bitcoin Builder video. In this video, we're going to cover a handful of different stories that have come out in the past week or so, and all of these are incredibly bullish to Bitcoin right now. So I like to look at this type of news because it helps me to stay on track with my own price predictions as the bull market progresses, to kind of gauge what other people are looking at as targets and what their expectations are. But this information is coming out so fast, it's hard to even keep up. So we're going to cover a handful of these right here. The first one we had was talking about Fidelity, which has over $7 trillion in assets under management devoted towards cryptocurrencies. Now this girl right here, even though she looks like she's 12 years old, is actually the director of research at Fidelity Digital Assets. Now she put out a thesis back in July, basically presenting a very bullish case for Bitcoin. And she goes into a depth of information on all of this stuff. And one of the takeaways in that thesis is she's comparing investing in Bitcoin to investing in Facebook back when it had 50 million subscribers, and to that growth that experienced to over 2 billion subscribers today. So Fidelity, that's incredibly bullish right there. You know, an organization that big managing that type of money. But it goes on. We've got Glassnode. And what they're saying in this article is they predict that the Bitcoin price will rise 10 times from here. Now, this is an article that came out on December 9th. And Glassnode, what they do is they kind of aggregate crypto market data, like on-chain network data, and they look at indicators and different metrics from that angle. And they have, you know, a handful of them, but he says here, 6 of the most important on-chain market indicators are currently at the same levels they were back in the start of 2017. So you let that sink in for a second. Now that falls in the same time frame of what we're looking at and expecting for Bitcoin. If the cycles are still repeating themselves as planned, then that's about where we should be, and that's kind of what I expect things to do. He says that all but one of these predictions or estimates suggest that Bitcoin will exceed $200,000. We have another piece of news coming out stating that Massachusetts Mutual just purchased $100 million of Bitcoin. And this is a big move right here. $100 million in Bitcoin for its general investment account. And one of the things that's important to realize is that a lot of these purchases that these big organizations and institutions are making are at current prices. They're basically at $20,000 Bitcoin, right? They didn't look to wait and buy to see if Bitcoin goes back down to $3,000 or $4,000. They're buying now. That's important for a lot of reasons, not least of which is that they're expecting a much higher price target for Bitcoin. They're not going to waste their time spending that type of money on Bitcoin if they're only expecting it to go up 5 or 10%. They have traditional assets that they're more familiar with and comfortable with and have less risk that they can get those kind of returns with. The only reason they're going to invest this much into Bitcoin is if they're expecting mega returns for the type of risk and volatility that they're exposing themselves to. Now, these guys are a little late. MicroStrategy, they've already put in a ton of money. They just added an additional $50 million in Bitcoin. We see their total purchases over here. Back in August, they bought 21,000 Bitcoin. The next month, they decided that wasn't enough. They bought another 16,000. And then in December, they just bought another 2,500. So their total purchases, cash purchases, are close to $500 million with all of this. We have, in addition to that, they've stated that they're going to issue $400 million in securities to buy even more Bitcoin. So this article goes on to state that they plan to issue $400 million in convertible senior notes, which is a debt security that can be converted into the issuing company's shares, which they'll then proceed to buy Bitcoin with. So that would increase the total crypto holdings of MicroStrategy to 62,000 Bitcoin. That's a lot of Bitcoin. Now, the Bitcoin that they've bought, because they started buying in August, is up. Their total holdings are up 65%, or, well, at least at the time of this article, 784 million. So they've already made a few $100 million on their total cash investment into Bitcoin. So sounds like that was a good investment for them so far, and it only has further up to go from here. We have another one here. Guggenheim Fund files to be able to invest up to almost 500 million in Bitcoin through Grayscale. So Guggenheim Funds Trust filed an amendment with the Securities and Exchange Commission to allow its $5 billion they have in funds under management to invest up to 10% of those assets into Bitcoin through Grayscale. This is another huge, this is monumental what we're seeing right now with all of these major institutions and corporations and big money managers and all these people becoming incredibly bullish on Bitcoin and just dumping mountains of money into Bitcoin. And this is just another one of several instances that we're seeing right here. This article here says institutions rushing, and again, all these articles came out within like a week and a half. Institutions rushing into $19,000 Bitcoin. Again, they're not worried about seeing if the price of Bitcoin drops back down. They know where this is going, right? And this is what I've been saying is you buy when the price is moving up. You don't worry about trying to get a lower price later or you're going to miss out. The Grayscale premium hits a 6-month high. Usually when these premiums hit these high points means that they're getting a ton of money and a ton of interest coming in. As we see here, it says the demand for Grayscale Bitcoin Trust continues to rise with its premium surpassing 30%. And that indicates that Bitcoin is seeing increasing institutional demand as price consolidates above $19,000. And then we have this article here saying that we've got a metric here, and it suggests that the Bitcoin price can go as high as $590,000 this bull run. So one Bitcoin will be worth $590,000 potentially as of this metric is suggesting. Now what is that? It's the NUPL, that's the net unrealized profit loss. And what they've got here is this chart, and we'll go ahead and take a closer look at this. So basically in this chart, what they're looking at is they've plotted this chart along with the price of Bitcoin, and they've noticed that every time that the price gets into the green area, it rises up and gets into this blue area. So it basically, the numbers are like, I think maybe 6.1, and then it goes up here to 8 or 8 something like that. So they plotted this out, and we've just started to go green here, and so then they plotted out up to the future price, which is not on this chart, and the metrics are saying that the price can go anywhere from like $130,000 up to $590,000 based on these projections. So this information on this chart is very important. We see in the past, every time this has happened, in these 4 instances here, the kind of price gains that we had with Bitcoin. But basically what this is looking at is you've got the price moving up here out of this red zone up into the orange zone, which represents hope, right? The price is going up, people get hopeful. And then as the price continues to rise, if it does, it goes into this yellow area, and this represents optimism. And if the price continues to rise, it goes into the green area, which represents belief, right? So now people have gone from being hopeful to being optimistic. That's a level above hope. Now they believe, right? That's definitely a level above optimism. And once it gets into the blue area, that's where we get into euphoria and greed. Okay, this is where people just lose their minds, right? And they don't even see an end to all of this. But then what happens every time, if you look at this, and if you can understand this chart, you can make a lot of money in the markets. So after this euphoria and greed, we go back down into the green area. But once we start on the downward trajectory, this is no longer belief, it's now denial. Right? People are in denial that the price has dropped down. You know, it's gonna come back up. It's not done yet. I still have more money to make. But it doesn't go back up. It goes down even more, and now we're in this yellow area again. But we're going down, not up. So this represents anxiety now, right? It's not optimism like it was over here. It's now anxiety, right? Because these people are still holding from up here because they still want to make more money because of the euphoria and greed that they were feeling. This is all the psychological aspects of the market. This is what messes up most people. Once we go through the yellow phase and we drop down into the orange phase, that represents fear, right? Fear because a lot of these people probably bought way up here, if not up here. So now they're scared because they're losing so much money, right? This is not hope like it was over here. It's now fear. And then we get into the red area, which is capitulation. Everybody sells out. They can't take it anymore. Bitcoin's going down to zero. I'm not going to go down with it. And they all jump ship, right? And then the cycle repeats itself. This is very predictable. So this net unrealized profit loss, which is looking at the amount of people who are in profit right now and then plotting all this stuff, when they look at this and they project out, again, it gives us an estimate between $130,000 and $590,000. So all of this to say that the case for Bitcoin right now is never been stronger, and now is the time to be piling up as much of it as you can. If ever there was a time to be putting your excuses behind you and starting to get focused on what we're about to see happen, because this will be life-changing for what we're seeing here. A lot of people think that this bull market's not going to be anything close to what it was before. I think it's going to be bigger than what it was before. Now, time will tell, and we'll keep an eye on it. So make sure you hit the like and subscribe button, and we'll see you guys on the next video.